Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Dr. Glow here with Black Girl Everything. Also follow me at Dr. Glow, the brand. So this is a new series that I've created that I'm going to do on the top of every single month on a Monday. We're going to be having these really cool panels about a whole bunch of great topics that are surrounding us of importance around business and health and wellness, Black women and families, all those dope things that we like to talk about. So today we're launching it with this amazing panel of creative women who are out here supporting what's actually really, really important. And this is my first panel. We're going to be talking with Black doulas in the space. So everybody, please take the time to introduce yourself. And I'm going to start off with Amina Woods. Please let everybody know who you are and where you're from.
Hey, I'm from Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. But I live in Queens now. Don't come for me, Brooklyn. But my name is Amina. I'm New York City based, birth doula, also social worker by trade as well. And um, being a birth doula is probably one of the most favorite things that I like to do for so many different reasons. And I'm excited to converse with my fellow doula siblings because also, in addition to being a doula, being in a space with doulas is very fun, very rewarding. So I'm excited about today's conversation.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Amina. So, Brandi, we're going to slide it over to you.
Hey, I'm from the Bronx. I'm a birth and postpartum doula, and I'm also passionate about lactation support. I feel that people in the Bronx don't have enough support around lactation, so that's where I've been focusing on lately. So I'll be working towards becoming an IBCLC as well. I'm a community doula with Bronx Rebirth Doula Collective as well, providing community support for people that wouldn't normally have access to doula care.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Dope. Adrianne?
Hey, everyone. How are you? My name is Adrianne Blakemore. I am from Chicago, but I now live in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a community-based doula as well as a private practice doula, full spectrum doula. I really enjoy Black maternal health care, the maternal health work that we're doing to support our women that look like us, for the families that we support and look like us. By trade, I am an educator, so I'm also servicing the families that I teach as well as the families that I support and work with in maternal health care.
That's dope. That's great. That's great. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening for us to have this important conversation. As a Black mom for myself, I didn't have the experience of a doula. I guess for me, ultimately, it was because I didn't even really know what a doula was back when I had my son. He's going to be 20 in March. So like 20 years ago, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. I was like, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby. This is going to be great. And now in my grown-up age, which I know I'm not considering having another child, I would consider such a thing in my grown-up age. So tell me briefly about what made you get into this work. So Brandi, I'm going to start with you.
For me, like you, Glow, my children are a little bit older. I have one that's 27 and one that's 21. And I did have the pleasure of having a doula for my youngest. And just the experience of going into the hospital and having doula support and having someone advocate for me and make me feel safe was something that I didn't have with my first birth experience. So as I started getting older and my children are more independent, I'm like, what do I want to do that's not just to pay the bills? What's important to me? And my feelings of joy come from taking care of my family and other people. So now I get to see babies come into the world every month and I don't have to take them home with me. So it's the best job.
Yeah. I have a granddaughter for that one. I love when she goes visit me for a week. And I'm like, oh, you're going home? This is so nice.
Yes, exactly.
It's the best time ever. That is amazing. Amina?
Awesome. Yeah, because babies, they're sweet and they smell good, but they are a lot of work for sure. I didn't know anything about doula support or even midwifery support when I had my son 15 years ago. It was sort of like a go with the flow type of situation, right? the way we've normalized the hospital system as being the expert in pregnancy care, that kind of thing. But I actually became a doula because as a clinically trained social worker, I was practicing psychotherapy in a private group practice. And this was during the pandemic, was meeting with women, younger women who were at the start of their teaching careers, the start of their nursing careers, but also at a stage where they were considering family planning. I was also working with women who were dealing with issues around family related issues, but also wondering, right, like if they were still dealing with issues around postpartum depression, though their youngest was maybe 3 years old or so. And so what I realized is that I started realizing how insecure and ill-equipped I was to even recognize what even is postpartum depression. Because in our culture, largely, right, postpartum depression is something that gets swept under the rug culturally, normally speaking, especially in the Black community. I feel like the issues around postpartum mood and anxiety disorders may have been more widely accepted for like white women, right? Middle class, upper class white women, you know? But for Black women, culturally speaking, those are things that I think we knew existed, but normalizing the conversation around it was something that wasn't happening. So I wasn't educated enough. And so what I did was, in order to inform my work as a psychotherapist, I did some research to see how can I administer maternal mental health first aid? That was my curiosity, looking for maternal mental health first aid, and was led to organization that does national work around postpartum, PSI, Postpartum Support International. So they offer training and certifications around that. But what also was coming up for me in my search was the word doula and doula services and doula care, and how, and it described how getting support from a doula can support the mental health of birthing people. So the more I looked into the doula work, I decided to train, and I did my training during the pandemic as well, and got so much more out of the training than I anticipated, and have been practicing as a doula ever since, because it allows me to use my skills as a social worker, my advocacy skills as a social worker, my skills as a psychotherapist. It allows, and my knowledge as a doula, it allows me to support moms in a way that is so satisfactory for me in all of those roles. So yeah, maternal mental health is what led me here to becoming a doula.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Amina. Love that. Love that answer. Adrianne, what brought you here to this work?
What brought me to this work? I love this question. So for me, unlike you beautiful ladies, right? You guys have older children. I got little ones, and you might hear them in the background at some point of the night, right? I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And of course, I didn't know what a doula was when I had my son, but I heard about a doula when I was pregnant with my daughter, my 4-year-old. And we have here of what's called a St. Louis Black Doula Collective. And it was a bunch of Black women who attended a class and took a course at Jamal Birth Village to learn how to be a doula and what a doula does, right? And I had always said, I'm going to do that. Now, mind you, I was like 8 months pregnant, right? And for me, what really made me want to do it is because during my births, they weren't traumatic to the point where, I could have lost my life, or, something happened to my children. It was more so just in a traumatic case of I had this birth plan that I thought was going to go this particular way. I mean, I had all my lavender oils, my diffusers, I had all the things, and no, it didn't go planned at all. It went awry quickly, fast, where I ended up having a C-section. And I didn't know anything about a VBAC until I started doing this work, right? So I, of course, had another C-section with my daughter. And I wanted to be that person to advocate in the room. Like, of course, I had my mom. She was here from Chicago. My husband was in the room, and they were advocating for me. They were taking up for me, but they were also scared, right? They were worried about the things that was going on. If the machines were going off, if my blood platelets were dropping, and you're coming in as a medical provider and you're telling us all of these things that are happening at a quick rate. Yeah, I don't. No, I want to be safe, right? We've been in labor for so long, and my cervix is not dilating, even with all the interventions that we're taking. So essentially, I was like the movie Rocky, like, go ahead, cut me. I'm okay. Like, we've been doing it. I proved my point. I tried. I could say I tried. So I wanted to be that person in the room. I wanted to be that person in the space. And that's what I'm doing for my clients. That's what drives me to do this work. It's a bonus. It's a bonus when I get to hold that baby and I put that baby back in the mama's arms or in that family's arms, because I don't have to worry about the baby coming back with me. But I really enjoy this work.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for just definitely touching on your personal story around there. So we're going to talk a little bit about our personal stories as we get through some of these questions, because I feel that our personal connections with Black maternal health can definitely equate to the type of work that we do, because everything we lead into the work we all do based off of our own actual personal experiences, right? So I'm going to jump into my first question, because we already know that across this country, we have Black women dying, and especially all the time. So I wanted to do this particular panel, especially for our young girls, to understand that doulas are available to them to be a secondary person to help advocate for them in this, especially in healthcare settings. Okay. So my first question is, what are some of the challenges that Black mothers face in the healthcare system, and how can you address them as a doula? Like, what benefits do you bring to being in the space? Amina, I'm going to start with you.
So definitely there's unique challenges experienced by Black mothers in our healthcare system, and they often stem from deep-rooted systemic issues. Some key areas that I noticed, at least in my work and my research, systemic bias and discrimination is one. Higher maternal mortality rates is another. And then there's also the challenge of feeling a lack of trust in the medical system. So when it comes to systemic racism, systemic bias and discrimination, that's one of the most significant hurdles, in my opinion, because then that also plays into the maternal mortality rate and the lack of trust, because it all sort of drills down to systemic bias and discrimination. Black mothers frequently encounter implicit bias from providers that can lead to their concerns and pain being dismissed. That's a pretty prominent complaint from at least almost every Black mother that I've talked to. That leads to their concerns being dismissed. And that's not just a statistic either. It's a reality that many have experienced. In my practice, I try to make it a priority to validate their experiences and their emotions, letting them know that their feelings are legitimate and they deserve to be acknowledged. That's some things that we discuss during our prenatal visits, right? Listening, just to get a better understanding of the client and creating a non-judgmental space so that they can share and be as transparent about what their concerns are. And then listening without judgment, that lets them know that they're being heard and understood. That's an important part of the work that I do, to ensure that their voices are heard by empowering them to advocate for themselves in medical settings.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, yeah, definitely, definitely empowerment and giving people the voice for themselves. And I think that's even as an educator for myself is one of the tools that I practice a lot is with giving people tools to ask the right questions and know the questions to physically ask. So Brandi, answer that same question for me. So what are some of the challenges that you have seen with Black mothers in the healthcare system?
I'm definitely going to amplify everything that Amina said because the discrimination and just that racism that is instilled in us for centuries, just
Mhm.
our feelings are disregarded. It's like, who are we to take control over our bodies, to say that we know better than the medical system what's going on with our bodies? So I'm always advocating for my clients to ask questions during your prenatal appointments so that you're not bartering for what it is you want when we're actually showing up for the birth. You already know what to expect. You know, if you want to labor at home for as long as possible, then you have the best chance of having autonomy over your body when you get to the hospital, because the longer we're there, the more time they have to intervene and start going into their bag of tricks. And I have
Mm,
this, and I have this, and I have this. And if you didn't want all of these things, why did you come to the hospital? Right. So I always tell them what to expect. Oh, you're going on 38 weeks. Expect for them to start scheduling an induction. Let me tell you what
yeah,
an induction looks like. Because the doctors are not telling them when you come in for an induction, it's going to take 3 to 5 days before you have your baby. They're under the impression that they're going to show up on this day, have their baby, and it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 thing. But if
yeah,
we start asking questions prenatally, then you already have these answers. How many of your clients do you induce? For what reasons are you inducing? How many of your parents end up with C-sections? What are the reasons that they're having C-sections? Are these things being scheduled? What would put me at risk for a C-section? What would make you schedule me for an induction? What risk factors do I need to have for you to start intervening, right? Or if I reach my estimated due date, my guest date, what will you do then, right? We want to know beforehand so that when I come in for this appointment and you tell me, oh, we're scheduling an appointment for next week for an induction, you know that you don't have to show up if it's not medically necessary. Or you can
yeah,
ask questions about why you should and what the benefits are and what the risks are and what induction process do you take, or what, you know, what are you going to do to augment my labor? Or if I say I don't want certain things, how would that be received? So I always say ask as many questions as possible leading up to it so that you know who you're dealing with and what response you're going to get. Unfortunately, in our healthcare system, the person you see at your prenatal visits is usually not the person that delivers your baby. So
hmm,
sometimes we do end up in the same situation, having somebody that's not listening. And I'm there to amplify your voice and make sure that your concerns are heard, and for you to know how to identify hospital policy versus what you can actually make a choice about when it comes to your body and your baby. And a lot of it we do have choices in, but when they speak to us, they speak very matter of factly, like this is the only way it can be. And it's not. So I always like make sure the family knows that we have choices, and you can always ask for time to think about it, time to discuss it, and don't stand here and watch me. Let me talk to my partner, my family, whoever, and come back in a few minutes and we'll make a decision.
yeah. Thank you for that. That was clear. You hit a nerve with me about that. Sometimes you don't see your own doctor. So my wife and I, we had a late loss about 18 weeks, 5 days, and our doctor was out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
We saw someone else at the hospital, and unfortunately, that individual didn't listen. Right. And that's how we experienced that loss. They sent us back home. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was wrong. You were okay. And she was not okay, obviously. Right. So yeah, so that really struck a nerve for me because that's the same exact experience that we went through. Um, to the point where my doctor, when we actually were blessed, we do have a rainbow baby, so she's about 5 years old now, and our doctor was like, "I'm not going anywhere." Like she didn't budge like our pregnancy, so she was always right there. I was able to text her whenever I wanted to. She was really accessible, But I also had a Black woman as a doctor. So there was, I was clear about that when we made that choice about, no, I'm going to choose a Black woman who's good with a really good hospital. But even with those things, we still had to deal with that one man who was like,
Yeah.
she's fine. And I was like, I'm not sure. And but we didn't have a doula on our side. So it said you guys are really proving the point more of just how important it can be to have a doula with you to help you, to teach you how to navigate through those types of systems. So Adrianne, I'm gonna move on from that question. So I think we kind of covered that one overall. So what are some of the concerns, Adrianne, that you see besides, I know the racism is a big thing, right? In communication in the hospitals. So I love the word collaboration. So as a doula, right, how hard or how easy do you find is it to be able to collaborate with other medical professionals?
You know, it it depends on the hospitals, right? Sometimes you have that good team of nurses. If you're a familiar face and you're there and they know how you work, we know how they work, so we kind of work well together, right? But then you have those ones who are new, fresh out of school, and they're not necessarily as uh, wanting to partner or wanting to work together because they're going straight from textbook, right? It's all how I've learned in the book. This is how we have been practicing, how I've been working. So sometimes that can be, a challenging situation, especially when you're in the delivery room and when you're in L&D, right? And what makes it even more challenging is sometimes when you have those same nurses or those same OB teams, and then you have a family who doesn't necessarily understand, right? And because that family doesn't understand, it's looked as being combative. It's looked at being like, oh, well, you guys aren't listening. And when you hear that, you guys, right, it becomes an even more of a detrimental space. So now it's threatening the space of the birthing space. And as a doula, the work that with me being your doula, I try to make sure that space is kept sacred. I try to make sure that that space is kept clean and free of any stress and worries, because again, once we start bringing in stress and worries and those negative energies, things like I stopped dilating, now I'm crying, now I'm worried, what's going on with the baby, what's going on with me, and then now that heightens the family that's in the delivery room, right? Because they're seeing all of these things. So trying to make sure that we're all on one accord is how as a team that we can continue to work, that we can continue to be able to team and partner. And I loved what Amina and Brandi said in regards to making sure that their clients are well aware. So one thing I always do with my clients is make sure if they're at their doctor's appointment or while we're even in the delivery room and the nurse is coming in with wanting maybe to up the Pitocin, but client doesn't want the Pitocin up. Hey, she's not wanting the Pitocin up right now. Can we give it a rest? Can we're asking, I'm asking the nurse or the doctor or the resident that's on call to kind of explain a little bit more, go into detail with the entire family present so that everyone can make an informed decision, so that everyone is on one accord. It is so important for everyone to be on one accord to ensure that both mom is safe and baby is safe and that everybody goes home at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So Brandi, what else? So that's the St. Louis perspective. How was it in New York? Because I know we have different personalities up here, and people are territorial in New York.
So what Adrianne said is key. Having a good nurse can make or break the whole birth experience. The doctor is only showing up at the end when it's time to push. Who you really need on your team is that nurse. So when you walk in, you're introducing yourself. Hi, how are you? I'm Brandi. I'm the doula, and you are? And we're starting that rapport from now. So if I need to change positions, is it okay to call for you to come into the room? Right? I want you to know that I'm not here to take over anything. I want us to work together. I want you to know that we will be doing position changes. We will be making adjustments to the laboring positions, whether she's going to walk around the room, she's going to dance a little, put on some music, whatever it is. But I want you to know that I still need your help to do all of these things. I'm not here trying to take over your job. I still want you to do your job, and I still want to be able to show up effectively for my family. And that's what I'm here for, to make sure that they have a great laboring experience. So we're all one team, because like Adrianne said, you don't want the person that's in labor stressed out or crying or feeling afraid that they upset someone, and I always try to stress to them, remember, your OB, your midwife, whoever it is, they're a service provider that you're paying to provide you with a service. So it's okay to make decisions about how that service will be provided to you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I just hear so many things in that. And I can see at times when, depending on the personality type, how that can cause so much conflict. Because we all have this perspective of life that we know what we're doing, especially when we're some type of trained professional in some field. I struggle with that, especially with early childhood, when my parents come and they see me in my program, and then they say what their doctor said. I'm an expert at early childhood. They're not.
Yeah.
And I'm also a doctor. So how are you going to tell me? And I have to have that conversation, because people put certain individuals just because of their title on this platform, right? And they're only a human being who studies something really hard and know a particular amount of information. But based off people's experiences, they may have a different perspective that might be more helpful for you in that moment. So I think that's really interesting. I definitely think that's interesting. Amina, welcome back. I knew you was going to come right back. So happy you're here with us again. So Amina, so we're talking about collaboration. So now you're also here as a New Yorker. What is your perspective on working with healthcare providers?
Before I got rudely disconnected by my Wi-Fi, I was listening to, I think, Adrianne and what she was sharing, right? It really all depends on the hospital system. It depends on the provider. In my experience, it definitely depends on the hospital system. Here in New York City, we have so many different hospital systems, right? You have NYU, you have New York City Health and Hospitals, you have New York Presbyterian and Mount Sinai, so many. And all of them have different cultures and approaches to how they approach birth work. And it really just depends. In my practice, I try to align myself in partnership with the provider staff, because I know that it really does take a more interdisciplinary approach in order to make the birth experience for that mom, a culturally relevant approach, to make it as trauma-free as possible. And working from an interdisciplinary lens also helps us to see the mom as a whole person, right? Not just as a patient. So my approach is to align myself with the medical staff, so that they can see me as part of the care team, not as an opposition. We're all there for the same thing, right? To support this mom and giving birth safely, so that the mom can go home and the baby can go home together. And it's not going to happen in the way that we know best suits mom and baby, and it's not going to happen in the way that mom wants her birth to happen if we're at odds with one another. My job isn't to tell the hospital staff what to do, because they're there for a reason. While there may be some anti-hospitalists around, right? The reality is that the hospitals and physicians, they do serve a purpose for birth, for those who need that level of support. And so I lean in on their expertise, because there are things that they know about medications and interventions that they know, that I learn from, and vice versa. I try to ensure that my expertise as a doula is also available for them as well, because it takes a community, it takes a village to ensure a safe delivery of a baby. So just working in partnership and collaboration, lending an interdisciplinary approach to the care team, is definitely my approach. Specifically because as doulas, we offer a continuity of care, meaning, for example, right, when mothers are visiting with their providers, they see the providers for very short periods of times. And even that period post-birth, right? During that postpartum period, after the mother leaves the hospital, there's at least a 3 to 6 week window that the mom is not seeing their provider, their midwife, or their OB. And so as the doula, my role is to play an intermediary role so that if anything comes up between birth and during that postpartum period, I can ensure that mom gets access to adequate services. So we're part, in my opinion, what I know for a fact is that we're part of the care team, and that's how I approach my work. It's just in partnership and collaboration with them.
Yeah, you brought up some great points, some great points. So I have somebody who's put a comment in the chat around this concept and with this whole idea that doctors know best. So I think for me, that comes a lot from trust. How do you, as a doula, build a trusting partnership with your families when you first start working with them? So Brandi, I'm gonna start with you.
In our prenatal visits, I like to have in-person prenatal visits. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your partner. I want us to go into this birth like old friends. I want to have a more intimate relationship with you than the healthcare staff, so that you know you're free to voice your concerns, your fears, your expectations with me. We're talking through everything. I want to know how the pregnancy has been, how your relationship is with your partner, with your mother-in-law, with your mother, with your sister that's coming over. I sometimes have families like, how do you feel about telling my sister she can't come over? I'm more than happy to tell your sister that you need your space during postpartum and you won't be receiving visitors, you know. And I always say, especially like now with the the environment the way that it is, everybody's getting sick. You can tell them, no, I don't want the baby to get sick. Don't come over. But I want you to trust me. We're building a trusting relationship. We're talking about everything and anything and then nothing at all, because I want you to feel like I'm an old friend. So I want you to voice your concerns. We're going to dialogue what you're going to say to your provider if they say this one thing. We're going to dialogue about what you'll say if they say something else that you really don't agree with. I just had a birth recently, and the nurse was talking to me the whole time. And I'm like, I'm not the patient. She is. You have to direct your information to her. You know, like, this is who you need to talk to. You need to talk to the person in front of you, see her as an individual, address her fears and her concerns about why she doesn't want this medication, tell her the benefits, the risks. Are there any alternatives to what you're offering to her? You know, and the dad turned around and he's like, thank you so much. Of course, because if you're talking to me, then we're leaving her out of the conversation. And who's going to make the decision? Not me, it's her body.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Adrianne?
So I agree with Brandi, 10 toes down, because that's exactly how I am. During our prenatal visits, I'm big on face-to-face, but if sometimes my client maybe can't do a face-to-face, I need to FaceTime you. I'm able to see I need to see your face. I need to see your energy. I'm meeting with your partner. I need to know what that relationship is like, because if that's not if that's a volatile relationship or a toxic relationship, that means this birthing room will be a toxic or volatile situation. I need to know any and everything. I always joke with my clients to say, think of me as TT. I'm gonna be in here making sure that my little niece and nephew makes it on Earthside and that you're okay. I'm making sure that everything that you're looking for and wanting, that you're granted that option to have. When we're meeting and we're talking, I love to meet with grandma. I love to meet with your mama, with your sisters, with whoever you want in the room, because they too can make this a stressful environment. They too can make you change your mind when you didn't want this particular intervention, right? So I need to make sure that everybody's in this room has an understanding of what we're doing. I'm big on having these prenatal visits. I'm big on knowing about how your doctor's appointments went. So when you leave the doctor's office, text me, let me know how it went. When I'm asking you, when you leave the doctor's office and I'm FaceTiming you because I'm checking to make sure you don't have any swelling. Like I'm big on that. I'm big on empowering you, but educating dad on what are the red flags to look for. What are the things that the doctor may not really go into detail about? These are things I need you to look at. These are things that I want you to kind of keep an eye on while mom is still pregnant. When mom comes home, what does that postpartum look like? I meet with each of my clients 3 times for prenatals. That third prenatal, we're developing a postpartum plan. What does postpartum look like? When you come home, who's there with you? Like, who's helping you with meals? Who's helping you if you have other kids? Because if you have other kids, they got to have stuff to do too. Like, if they're coming to the delivery room, I need to make sure if I need to have my Barney bag of tricks in there. So if I got to have all my crayons, my colors, things to do, activities to keep them occupied. I'm making sure that the babies have an understanding, because again, things may change. They may look and mommy can't get to them as quick as once mommy could. So making sure that that child feels welcome, that child feels heard, just to ensure that everybody is in a cohesive environment. So.
Dope answer. So Amina, I think you're going to give a really good answer to this question. I know you are. You ready for it?
Sure.
So the question for you is, now what it sounds like I'm hearing from Brandi and Adrianne is a lot about culture, right? Is that we're relating and we're building trust through understanding culture, relating directly to people about everything around them, the people around them. And honestly, we can align with them. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to be their doula, right? So now understanding cultural understandings of stuff, what can understanding our culture show with being as a benefit when you're working with them as their doula? So AKA, when you're working with people who look like you, what are the benefits of that?
Oh, that's absolutely one of the benefits of working with a doula who looks like you. It serves many benefits, honestly, but some factors, for me, it's about being seen, right? Knowing that as a Black woman, there are certain experiences when interacting with the healthcare system that are unique challenges to Black women, to Black people. And so knowing that a mom can recognize me as a Black woman and feel seen, right? Just simply being seen makes a world of a difference, especially when interacting in a healthcare system that often leaves Black women feeling unseen.
Yeah.
Being seen by your doula for your whole self as a Black woman is immeasurable, to be honest. So there's that, right? Knowing that I have a doula who gets it, not even just in her role as a doula, but in her role as a Black woman. She understands, she sees me, she understands what I'm up against when I'm dealing with my medical provider. So that helps reduce this feeling of isolation that many mothers feel, particularly Black mothers, to know that there's someone literally like me. I'm literally in the corner somewhere in their labor and delivery room. There's someone in that space, in that room, fully present, that understands what she's up against in probably one of the most vulnerable times of her life.
Yeah.
And so in being a doula of color, being a Black woman who's also a doula, that helps with that trust building process that Brandi and Adrianne were mentioning. Because it takes more than just saying, hey, you can trust me, right? Black women, Black people tend to I don't want to speak for all Black folks, but most Black folks tend to trust those who they can they can connect with in that way.
Yeah.
You're right, based on our shared experiences as Black people. So that helps with the trust building process, because there's a cultural relevance that they feel connected to. They know they may realize that there are some traditional practices and preferences that they may bring up as far as their birth plan is concerned. So there any feelings of judgment may not enter the space sometimes, right? There's an assumption that there won't be a judgment if, say, I want to light some sage or practice some culturally relevant practices within my birth experience. There's sometimes there's the assumption that most Black folks are familiar with those types of cultural practices. So it definitely helps to be a trusted partner as a Black woman. It helps build that trust between myself and my doula client.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. And I agree some more. Okay. So Brandi, I'm going to pop a new question towards you. I'm going to ask you, what kind of community support or educational initiatives do you think will help maternal health outcomes in Black communities? AKA, what are some of the things that we can do as a community, like conversations like this, ultimately, right? Conversations like this. I want everybody who has a young teen at some point in time, start exposing them to the language, exposing them to the opportunities that doulas exist and that they're helpful through their process, right? As an additional support. But what are some of the other things or educational initiatives that we can do to improve the outcomes in our community?
Having community-based events, like how they have the baby showers. We can have like doula expos in the community to let people know that doulas are here. We're not just for hospital births. We're not just for home births. We're for every birth and for every birth in person, right? I support all family dyads. I don't discriminate. I'm all inclusive. I want everybody to have a doula. I want to support all Black and brown birthing people that wish to feed their babies human milk. So I'm going to have lactation classes and workshops so that we can start talking about feeding your baby human milk before they're actually here, right? What the expectations are, how it looks in the first 10 days, how many times you're actually feeding this little person from your body in one day, right? Because so many people are like, this baby wants to feed every 2 hours. Yes, that is perfectly normal. Keep doing it, right? And if you need support, I'm here. I got your back. Let's talk about postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, all the things that come along with being a birthing person in this society that is set up against us, right? We need community. We need to be there for each other. We need to be supportive in an unbiased space and offering support to everybody wherever they need it, right? I could show you around this room right now. I have diapers here. I have wipes. I have breast pumps. I have all kinds of things here because whatever it is somebody tells me they need, from a bassinet to a bib, I'm going to try to get it. Whether I'm in a the free Facebook groups, hey, does anybody have a bassinet? Does anybody have a crib they're not using? I want to be able to help everybody. And if we all just reach out to one another and offer that support to our communities, that would make the birthing experience so much better, even if we just do it for a few people at a time. Just putting the word out there that we're here to support you. There are resources in the community. If you need them, there's diaper banks where you can go and get diapers and wipes. There's maternity pantries that you can go to and get different things if you're a birthing person, if you have a baby. I think there's so many resources that people don't even know are here.
Nope.
You know, even when you talk to people about having access to free doula service, it's like, what do you mean it's free? It's free. All you have to do is fill out this questionnaire and someone will show up for you. But we're so guarded sometimes. We're like, no, if it's free, then something's wrong with it. You know, it's not going to be the full service. No, you're going to get the full kit and caboodle after you fill out this paper. We have services and support for you, and we want to help. We want to help. So I just think education and awareness around doula support and resources for birthing people, lactation support, postpartum support. I think families are often, like Amina said, forgotten when it comes to postpartum, between having a baby and that 6-week checkup, it's like everybody forgets about the person that gave birth and only focuses on the baby. So we need to check back in with that birthing person. What do you need? Did you eat today? Did you shower? Did you have 10 minutes for yourself? You know, where you were not a mom or a partner, where you were just you for 10 minutes. Let's start there and work our way up to more time each day so that you begin to feel more like yourself again.
Perfect, perfect. I think that's a perfect answer. Adrianne, I'm gonna slide another question over to you. What type of changes do you think are needed in our healthcare system to support Black mothers?
Access. I really do feel like access is really big. Like here in Missouri, we are really working on obtaining access for Black maternal health care, or just maternal health care in general. So we've just made it to where as our Medicaid services can now offer doula services. So it's covered under the under your Medicaid insurance. So we're really big on that. Like I'm super excited that that's something that is now being offered, because again, that once wasn't something that was always offered. We're also just trying to make sure that our families have things, something as simple as, like Brandi said, like car seats. So like working with the fire department to ensure that families are putting the car seats in correctly. So again, access and education. Those are two of the biggest things that I feel like we need to have that we don't always have a lot of. And not because it's not always there. Sometimes we don't know what's available to us. And that's the biggest, like, why don't we know that? Like, what can we do to provide this vast amount of education to ensure? So teaming up with other doulas that are in your area or not in your area. I love what Brandi said about going on and trying to get those access to like cribs and all of those things, right? Because again, you never know who doesn't have a crib, and you never know about the different resources that can be provided. Some, like there's a resource, a home away from home, I think is the name of it, where they provide bedding for kids up to 16 years old. So if you don't have a bedding, let's get some bedding as an option for you. Ensuring that moms have the milk that they need, that the support with the breast milk, how the lactation consultants or the milk bank. So working with the hospitals to ensure that our moms have breast milk, working with the moms to make sure those who maybe would like to use formula, having access to formula. Because again, we don't know, we don't want what happened a year or two ago where there was a formula shortage, right? So just trying to ensure that we all have the correct information as well as the access to those things that you need.
Yeah, access. Access is a big thing for me. I just opened my first parent engagement and sensory gym here in Mount Vernon. And part of it, and one of the key reasons I'm having this conversation, is to support, around family planning. When I was growing up, it was like people talked about that. Like family planning was still a thing back in like the 90s or so. Once 2000 came along and, Google kicked off the way that it did, people weren't really having those conversations because it was so easy to have access to wrong information as far as I was concerned. So family planning is not really a thing. And then it's so interesting. So young folks are sitting here, they're having babies and all these different things. And it's like, but like the simple stuff, how do you give a baby a bath? Right? How do you change a diaper? What's going on with their stomach? What is that thing? That's their umbilical cord, baby. It's going to be okay. Like, and these are like real rational questions that they're asking, because sometimes they're in a hospital, they're having a baby, and then they're put out. And there's no one there. No one there. And especially for our young moms, and I'm talking about I have a young daughter. My daughter's 18, right? My granddaughter is only 10 months old. So she was a young mom. And I was just like, baby girl, we have to learn those things, but I'm right there to support her. But for some mothers, younger mothers, those people are not there. Right. So I just find that really interesting about that access to information and that the education, that advocacy and resources that are available. I'm part of a lot of boards just so I can have access to resources. Amina, tap on it.
I just want to add to that. I don't know how to raise my hand on this thing. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I'm eager to jump in, especially on the topic of education, because in one of the earlier questions, I did mention that Black maternal mortality, right, is one of the biggest challenges that Black mothers experience in our healthcare system. And what I'm finding as I do a lot of these talks as a doula is that so many people are not aware that this is a national crisis that we're experiencing. And it's not just a Black crisis, it's a national crisis. The issue is that this crisis is affecting Black mothers at such a astounding, disproportionate rate compared to white women, and then even at a higher risk compared to our other BIPOC counterparts, right, like Hispanic birthing persons. And so when I think about like education and the importance of education, having access to free and low cost childbirth education, I think, will be one of the most impactful ways to empower Black mothers, because what's happening is 80% of Black maternal mortality cases are preventable, right? They're preventable. And what I notice is that what is the gap between the the mortality and not is the lack of information that is shared with the birthing person. So you mentioned that your question was around like how to impact from like the youngest person, right?
Yeah.
What kind of initiatives can help? And I think having childbirth education can be really impactful, usually because what I find is that most women, unfortunately, many women are just learning about their reproductive system once they're pregnant, right? Um, and so that's problematic, that there's not a general knowledge as to what's happening within your body. So without that information about what's happening with your body, it's really hard to make decisions around interventions that the doctors are introducing to you. In my experience in working with hospitals, there's a limited information that is shared. I'm not sure to what fault that is. There's rushing that happens in experiences with OBs. And due to certain time constraints, it really is really difficult to share all the information that there is to know about your birth experience and about the interventions that will be introduced at the hospitals. So when you open the door for mothers in our communities to gain knowledge and the confidence that they need, I think that's one of the ways that we can work towards helping to bring down some of those numbers, being able to make informed consents about all of the the interventions, knowing what your options are, knowing what interventions you can deny and what you should get, I think can make such a huge impact on where we stand with some of the maternal mortality crisis. And it also fosters a sense of empowerment. Women and girls can reclaim ownership to their body, and by having this knowledge, right, they become more of the expert as to what their body is going through. So
Thank
I
you for
say
that.
all that to echo the need for education, specifically around childbirth education.
Yeah, no, I think that you got it right. The things that we're so focused on educating our young folks about don't necessarily encompass everything that they really need to learn in life, right? And if we want to strengthen Black and Brown communities, we need to strengthen Black and Brown families and family planning and birthing and all those things. Those things are real, right? And that's what actually grows our family. We need to get back to some of those core lessons. And then it also empowers our young girls to actually know how to maneuver with their bodies because they understand them for real. They know with certain choices how they actually will affect them in the future. Because if you do this now and you get caught up with this is how this is going to affect this. They might be more prolonged, might decide to make different and safer choices, knowing that these types of consequences can affect them in these types of ways, right? So as we get towards the end of this conversation, that's where I could probably talk to you guys for hours. I want you to wrap up with giving just your synopsis on what you believe is some of the important parts of being a doula, and also just share how people can connect with you. So Brandi, we're going to start with you.
I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
This is the moment where you talk all about you.
All about
and how
me.
great you are.
So you can find me
share
on
your information.
Instagram at Doula Brandi. My website is benurturedbirthservices.com. You can send me a message on Facebook, Brandi Miller, wherever you can find me. Just reach out if you have questions, if you need support. I think the most important part about being a doula is forming a relationship with your clients, advocacy, having that support for the family. You know, doulas support the birthing person, the partner, and the family unit as a whole, and make them feel empowered when we go into these different birth spaces. To add to what Adrianne and Amina both said, I also think that we need more access to midwifery care, to birthing centers, to out of hospital births. Home births are an option if you're a low risk person. I think a lot of people have the stigma associated with a home birth, but definitely check it out if you're a low risk person and it's something that you are considering. Ask questions, meet with the midwives, have your list of questions that you need answers to, and just arm yourself with information. There's so many things that we just don't know about, but we can know about and we can be exposed to, and we can have these great experiences as long as we're educated about them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandi. Adrianne?
Again, my name is Adrianne. You can find me on Instagram at coachemup_ace_. My website is www.acingmylife.com. You can find me on Facebook by my name, any of those other platforms that you see. I'm always around. What I really do feel that what makes being a doula so important to me is, again, that relationship building, getting you a good group of doula sisters that have either been in the business longer than you, and you're training up those that's coming up under you. That means so much, because again, that access to information, it never goes away, right? When you have that good group, finding and getting more resources for like those mom support groups to better support your clients, that you can lead them and guide them to. Again, it's all about building relationships. It's all about what kind of relationship you want to have with your client, what kind of relationship you want to have with your client's family, what kind of relationship you want to have when you walk into those hospitals, when you walk into the labor and delivery room. Again, working with and being the most collaborative person in the room, because with those things, what somebody can't say is who Adrianne is not in the room. Like Adrianne is that person that when you see her outside of the room, when you see me in the community, I'm that same person, that same smiling face, that same go-getter, that same person that's like, no, that's not what she said. She don't want that. Like, you know, that same person every step of the way. And so I want to make sure that my clients know that my families know that the OBs know that whoever I'm working with, my doula sisters know that. So that's just what makes this work so fun and so easy to do, because it's hard work, but it just makes it so more rewarding.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adrianne. And Amina.
All right. So I just launched my private doula practice, New York City.
Congratulations.
Mother's Legacy Wellness. We're starting, it's not just a doula service, but we're starting and building a foundation from there. We will be offering doula services, workshops, and curated wellness kits and things of that nature to service the mom. You can find my website at motherslegacywellness.com to learn a little bit more about me, what I do, and how I can support your birth journey. Through that website, you can schedule a free consultation with me so we can discuss whether I would be a good fit to work with you during your birth journey. as far as like the most important part, you know, as doulas, we provide um, advocacy support, physical support, and what else? Resource support, right? And all of those are really, really important. But what I enjoy the most about what I offer that encompasses all of that is just being able to share knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the birth process so that mothers can be able to make the best decision that they see fit for themselves, right? Not decisions that they need auntie to be satisfied with or their partner to be satisfied with, but just having them tap into their inherited feminine wisdom, right? That was inherited from all of the ancestors that have carried them through that far, right? Because there is an innate ancestral wisdom to birthing that we already have, that we already know how to do with the support and assistance, right? With the doctors as a backup. So just being able to empower my clients in that way and watch them, you know, deny certain interventions or request certain options affirmatively and proudly makes me feel really, really happy and very proud that I've been able to have that impact on them. It's spiritual work, if you will. It's definitely a calling. And you know, doulas aren't the solution to the problem, that's for sure, right? Doulas are definitely not the solution to the problem of Black maternal mortality and morbidity, but the research does show that having a doula at your side and in your corner can help mitigate some of those risks that that cause maternal mortality, preventable causes of Black maternal mortality and morbidity.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Amina. I don't think that any other young person or honestly, anybody that comes across me, I'm like, do you have a doula? That's just going to be my main question for now. It's like, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you happen to have a doula? They're like, what is that? What? This is why you're going to have a doula, because you can get it with your insurance. You're going to go ahead and knock this out. There's other free, if you don't have any insurance, there's some free ways if we can get you one. Let me connect you now, because I believe that everybody should have one. Because this has been amazing. I've learned so much just listening to you share your thoughts and your experiences around it and realizing just how important it is. And then we all should have as much support as possible, especially even that postpartum support. You know, so for some mothers who come home, they have multiple children and no one's there really, they don't really have all that support. To have someone come in to say hey, did I catch a shower? And you can sit there and say no. And you're like, oh, okay, well, give me the baby and go take a shower. you know, go outside, get some fresh air and come back, reset. So all those different things are important. So I think this is definitely dope. So I want to thank you all for sharing space with me today and enjoying this first panel, first of many, part of this new series that I'm going to be hosting. You have proven that it's worth actually hosting. So I'm excited to have had you on as the first. And for those of you who are also watching, please make sure you're following. Our next panel is next month in December. We'll be talking about opening brick and mortar, as I will be opening the first Black Girl Everything brick and mortar here in Mount Vernon, New York as well. As I already opened up my sensory gym. It's been a very powerful year for me. In 2025 is going to get even more powerful as I go into my year of results, as I'm calling it, and preparing for the Black Girl Everything retreat in March 14th to 16th, which is about wellness as well as some business and a lot of big fun. All right. So thank you all for everybody tuning in. I'm going to disconnect from the world. My speakers, please hold on for a minute. And thank you again, anybody who else missed this. This will be on the Black Girl Everything YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe while you're there. Thank you all.